What does it mean to be a real man? And how did we end up in a world that has a manosphere? There is no simple answer to those questions, but looking back 30 years at a column I wrote that appeared in Hong Kong's South China Morning Post with the title, The Real Men of Days Gone By, I'm hoping that today's guest, chef, writer, and yogi Tom Norrington Davies, is going to be able to help me figure out some of the answers. I'm Teresa Norton. This is The View from Abroad. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome. If you're back for more, I guess that means I must be doing something right here. And it would be wonderful if you could take a moment and post a short review on whatever platform you're listening to us on today. So we begin, as we always do, by listening to the column that appeared in the South China Morning Post back in 1999. The Real Men of Days Gone By. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, or maybe it's this whole moving into the millennium thing, but I've been thinking a bunch of really profound junk lately. So watch this space for profound junk. Like, for instance, the other night my old man and I were watching Larry King Live, and his guest was one of my least favorite comedians, Don Rickles. For those of you unfamiliar with his comic style, it consists of one-liners usually pointed at audience members that go something like, And who is this, sir, your wife? Looks like Orson Welles and Shelley Winters in the same dress. No, seriously, you're terrific. I love you, too. I just want to take you home and put you in my jacuzzi and throw in a toaster. You get the idea. Don Rickles has been around doing fat, ugly, skinny, Italian, Irish, Jewish, Catholic jokes forever. And I guess maybe he's written a book on his life or something, because he was being interviewed and I was in and out of the bathroom drying my hair and applying gel, so I missed most of the show, but I did catch some old footage that showed a celebrity roast. Now, I don't know, maybe this is an American thing, but a roast is when a bunch of friends gather together in the spirit of good, clean fun to humiliate the guest of honor. Sound like your old school days? Or a scene from a Stephen King movie? Well, yeah. But instead of going berserk and using psychic powers to set everyone on fire, the recipient of the abuse laughs hysterically, blushes a lot, and dabs his or her eyes with the corner of a cocktail napkin to catch happy tears. So they're showing this 1960s black and white footage of one of these wingdings, and the camera pulls back from Rickles, and we get a look at the guests at this roast. Frank Sinatra, Peter Lawford, Dean Martin, Milton Berle, Joey Bishop. It was basically a convention of the coolest cats and the hippest playboys of that era. Well, with the exception of Milton Berle, who, in my opinion, spent entirely too much time in front of a TV camera in women's clothing. These guys were having a ball. There was something so fun and sexy and male about the way they all looked together. I felt like I was in the guys' locker room, all sort of backslapping and shoulder punching with no chicks to show off for, just a bunch of guys cracking each other up. It made me smile. I said to my husband, "Isn't that great?" It was back in a time when men were allowed to be male. He knew exactly what I was talking about. The unspoken, in my observation, being without having to apologize for it. Now, this certainly may not be the case in many, many parts of the world, but in the West, I think we've emasculated men, almost made it politically incorrect to be a guy. This, I think, is the downside of the good and important changes that are finally coming about for women. It makes me wonder if, in an effort to get him in touch with his feminine side, we've taken the punch in the shoulder out of his guy side. I was talking with a girlfriend about this as it relates to our sons, the goal being to help our little boys become men capable of nurturing without turning them into wet, soppy men or Milton Berle men. Guys shouldn't be manipulated by political correctness into sensitivity. This just breeds resentment. Instead of always nurturing your son, allow him to comfort you once in a while. Let him dry your tears occasionally and learn how to comfort the women he cares for. I also think a lad should enjoy a good old-fashioned dirty joke with his guy friends regularly. We have to create an atmosphere in which desire and respect for women coexist and are both considered natural. I told you, profound junk. Thank you, Don Rickles. So our goal for the new millennium is to allow men to be men in pants who chase women in skirts whom they care for and respect while wanting to get into their pants, but not their skirts. No thank you, Milton Berle. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Welcome, Tom Norrington Davies. It's so lovely to see your face and have you here.
Likewise, Teresa. Really good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Sure. We met in Hong Kong in, I think it was the 80s, late 80s. Does that sound right?
It would have been 1990, actually, bang on. Yeah, I just left university.
Well, what a journey your life has taken since those glorious days in Hong Kong. Head chef at London's first gastropub, best-selling author of, you've had 3 cookbooks. You were a cookery columnist for London's top newspapers, a Discovery Channel modern British cooking show, and now you're a certified Ashtanga yogi teacher. I have to start off this by asking, why did you choose that column?
I think partly because there was a line in it that was truly prophetical. Is that a word?
Yeah. Well,
am I allowed to look at notes?
yes, of course you are. Of course
Only
you are.
because I didn't want to paraphrase you, but it's one line in particular. Guys shouldn't be manipulated by political correctness into sensitivity. This just breeds resentment. I mean, Cassandra,
Right?
it's there, isn't it? That is so we're talking 26 years ago, or
Yeah.
27 years ago,
Yeah.
and a long time before any of us heard the words manosphere. And I think,
Do you think that was that I was spot on with that's really what's happened?
I do think that it's part of it. I think it's so long and complicated to
Yeah.
unpack.
Yeah.
But I think that somewhere along the way, what it is to be a man or a woman or anything in between has become so um, diverse, and we're all learning so much. But from what I can tell, somewhere along the way, masculinity in or certain aspects of masculinity have become pathologized. And I think that's a dangerous place, because if you
Yeah.
start telling boys that and there's that really lovely bit in the column where you talk about being a mom and how you and your friend, and you want your boys to grow up being good men. I think it's really a fine line to tread,
Yeah.
being not made to feel that there's something wrong with you because you're a boy. I think
And
that the
because you
male,
have the feelings that boys turning into men have. There are just natural feelings and emotions that come up, and I just
absolutely,
was concerned my son was just a little boy, and I
yeah,
didn't want him to grow up in a world where he had to feel bad about being a guy.
absolutely. I think that this is possibly a controversial thing to say, but I mean, it's really hard these days to say
Anything
anything
that isn't.
publicly that doesn't upset somebody. I wonder if masculinity, or if men are in their post-imperial phase, it's a little bit like empire and colonization. For a long time, men were self-declared kind of rulers of
Masters of the universe. Yeah.
all that thing about male privilege, even more than male privilege, white male privilege. Uh, all those things are, in a way, in their twilight years. If not, we may be in the post male imperialist stage. I kind of hope we are.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great place to be for anybody, especially not women, but also I think not men.
Listen, I still think the Rat Pack was cool. Joey Bishop, Frank Sinatra,
Yes.
Dino, Sammy Davis Jr. Peter Lawford, they were the original Ocean's 11 crew. The first movie, that Ocean's 11 movie, they were all in it, and they were the
Yes,
cool guys. As a woman, I look at old movies and novels that I read that were current at the time, and often I think, gosh, the way that women were painted in all of these books and programs, we've come a long way. But on
absolutely.
on that journey of the long way, especially at the time when I was writing this column, um, the trend was that the husband in the sitcom was the dodo bird who got everything wrong, and the
Mm.
wife was the one with the smarts. And it was a pendulum swinging the other way. But I wonder what kind of other stuff came out during that period that started making women the target of what wrecked the world for the men in the manosphere.
Yeah. Well, I think the manosphere is probably a phenomenon that will pass. It'll have its day in the spotlight, and it will be like all things on social media. I think everyone's attention span will move on because it seems to me that that is part and parcel of planet social media. Already, after watching Louis Theroux's documentary, I don't know if you did the
I
one on
did,
Netflix.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's some of it's really really uncomfortable to watch. Um, but I took two things away from it. One was that there was an awful lot of posturing going on and playing up to the camera, um, and in particular, HS Tiki Toki.
Mm,
The bit that really caught my eye, and I think it was really clever of Louis to leave it in because he doesn't comment on it or anything. But did you see it when his mum was around toward the end of the show, and after he'd been rude to Louis, she ticks him off,
yeah,
and he took it.
yeah.
And I just thought, well, that speaks volumes. Very little has changed.
I'm gonna jump to another point here because there were so many things that I read and I thought, gosh, today this is so loaded. I made that reference back in the 90s about guys being guys in the locker room and giving each other a punch in the shoulder and enjoying a dirty joke and all. And of course, I read it today, and the only thing that comes to mind is that leaked footage of Donald Trump
Uh,
talking about, grabbing women's private parts without at random, without permission, and then kind of sloughing it off as locker room banter,
yes,
right?
the Manosphere people as well. They've sort of, I don't know if they've taken their cue from that particularly awful Trumpism. There's so many to choose from,
Yeah,
but they often pass off a lot of what they're doing as kind of banter. But crucially, this what we call in the UK banter, locker room horseplay. The crucial thing, I think, the element that is missing in the Trump example and in the manosphere is consent.
yeah,
And this is such a huge part of if boys. There's a lovely study from the University of Birmingham. I forget the peer. It's a politician in this country who's been doing some beautiful work on how to educate boys to understand what it is to be good men. And she points out that there are two so-called masculine traits that mustn't be seen as toxic, or even more importantly, non-masculine. And they are ability to talk about your feelings and your emotions, and then the provision of a safe space for you to talk about those without being mocked, and understanding what is consent, and therefore having healthy boundaries. Like who should be listening or at the receiving end of your horseplay, your banter?
yeah,
Who who has and of course when those comedians go into those roasting situations, they're basically saying, "Bring it on. I can take it. I
yeah,
can do it."
yeah.
And then they all hug it out at the end.
Joking around amongst friends is one thing, claiming to have taken something personal and private from another person to show off to other people,
Yeah, that's
right?
not
How is
that's
that
not
a
banter. That's not play. That's bullying.
Yeah,
I can remember. I am a little bit nervous around great big groups of guys with loads and loads of banter. Um, Partly because at school, one of my most sort of unpleasant memories at school was not actually being at the receiving end myself. I was a bit of class clown. I could normally deflect uh, bullying or aggressive situations by making someone laugh. Um, but I saw other people who didn't have that. And I saw people just there were people in school who just were relentlessly targeted by the biggest kid in the room with the biggest gob, who could just dish it out, dish it out, dish it out, and never got it in return. And that is not play. That's the fine
that's
line. That's where
cruelty. Yeah,
yeah, it's cruelty. But the character who I wasn't familiar with, who was it,
Milton Berle.
Milton
I thought
Berle.
to myself, "Gee, is that like a cancelable statement about not dressing up in women's clothing?" But when he did it, again, it was like it wasn't there was something mean-spirited about the way he did it. Do you know what I mean? More mean about women, really.
Yes, yeah. It was really bad drag too. And the reason I sent you that clip, I
This
just thought you
clip
might love it because
that's
the hubris where he came unstuck. I mean, it's a very uncomfortable clip to watch. Just to explain, in 1993, I think it was, he went on an
MTV
awards
Awards
ceremony with RuPaul and had obviously rehearsed a quip
bit.
where
Yeah,
he'd sort of said, "Hey, Ru, I dressed up in frocks all the time when I was your age," um, and RuPaul is supposed to say, "Well, why did you stop?" And he spoke, to which to feed him the line so that he could say, "Well, it was a drag."
yeah.
And obviously, don't compare yourself to RuPaul if
To
you're wrong,
RuPaul.
because you're going to get. Well, this is the thing in drag world, that's known as reading. This whole idea of it's a huge part of RuPaul's Drag Race. Basically, it's roasting in a dress.
Yeah,
And so that's the thing. I don't think that you have to be particularly manly, in inverted commas, to still be very good at dishing out the banter.
yeah,
I
that's
don't
right.
think I mean, the two examples I can think of fairly recently, you don't even need to be a man. I think women, I've seen great examples of women giving as good as they get. One was a documentary about Martha Stewart, who post prison went on some bizarre roasting show uh,
And
and gave as
became
good
great friends with Snoop Dogg.
Snoop Dogg. Yeah,
I mean, could you think of a more unlikely pair? And they've become great pals,
yeah.
which I
Well, because
think is delightful and unbelievably
she kind of
cool.
proved herself a bit more gangster than most of the so-called
Yes,
gangsters in the room
well,
because
she'd
of
been in Stir, you know.
having been inside. Yeah.
Here's a question. What shaped your ideas about being a man when you were young? What were influences that
Ooh, that's a really good question. And it might be again why I'm not the biggest fan of sort of male-only spaces. Not to take away from my dads. I was blessed with a dad and a stepdad, both of whom I absolutely adore. Um, but possibly because my parents separated when I was young, um, but also because of the presence of my grandparents in my early life. I associate my younger years with extremely strong females. Um, and then actually, crucially, again, in my very early on in my chefing career, the biggest influence on me as a chef was a woman called Carla Tomasi. She was the game changer for me. I went into her kitchen as a very young and pretty much rookie chef. She was a Roman. You could call her Italian if you like, but you get short shrift for it. She'd say, "I'm Roman." Uh, she was absolutely amazing. Everything in her menus was justified by being in season. grown or produced with low intervention. The menu, which was amazingly brief in those days, now very on trend to have just one sheet of A4 paper, rewritten painstakingly every day, with basically whatever was at the market or had been recommended to her. That was all really, really new to me and actually to most people in the UK in the early 90s.
So working with her was a big influence on how you felt developed as a man, do you feel?
Definitely. Um, and as a man and as a chef,
Yeah, I'm thinking of I'm thinking like Anthony Bourdain and a lot of who's that other angry British
Gordon
chef?
Ramsay.
Yes,
Mm,
he's explosive. I think to myself, I'd be an absolute wreck in that environment. Did she create a different kind of atmosphere?
yes, I'd say yes. I mean, she was scary. You know, she was. I think, but when I say she was scary, I
Demanding?
think demanding, a perfectionist to a certain extent, very blunt, very Italian. But you know, she didn't mince her words, um, and you learn an awful lot from her if you were open to it. Um, and I really was. I was just absolutely. I was like putty in her hands. She died uh, in her 70s, which is we lost her too soon. I think in our last ever exchange was a WhatsApp chat in 2024 during the pandemic. She got really, really into Instagram and gained a huge international following. By then, she'd pretty much retired to a kitchen garden just outside Rome, where she grew and gave lessons, cookery lessons. And in fact, when she died, we were in the process of planning one such lesson. I was going to take a group from the UK to her house. Uh, and I was helping a place in the East End get started, a cafe attached to a yoga center. And she'd seen the menu online and she just sent me a little thing saying, "Nice work, Tom."
That meant,
And I was like, "Oh, thank you." Thinking, "Oh, she's read my menu today," and thinking she'll have seen dishes of hers on that menu for sure.
oh, yeah.
And then there was a little, you know, and you can see someone still typing. There was a little dot dot in it, and she was like,
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
by the way, it is spelt burrata."
Oh, how great. How
So
great.
I said, "Yes, boss." I've been really lucky to work with some amazing women chefs,
Mm,
but and things are way, way better than they used to be. But it is still not so easy to ensure that you have a nice cross section of boys and girls in
in the
kitchens.
kitchen. Yeah.
It still
Listen,
mostly attracts guys.
well, this is a perfect, point for us to take a little break and talk about the charity that you've chosen to share with us. We'll be right back after this. Okay, let's talk about the world's central kitchen for a few minutes. I want to hear, after that, a story from your own life that's sparked by the column. How did you get involved in it? And then just a snapshot of the good work that they're doing, if you don't mind.
Oh, I should say first and foremost, I'm not involved in the charity. I just really, really like their work. But uh, I think they started in 2010 as a response to the earthquake in Haiti. I
Right.
think that's their beginnings. It's just such a beautifully simple thing that they do. I mean, wherever there's a disaster, whether it's man-made or natural, they assemble field kitchens and they feed the local communities. But crucially, mainly to save money and ensure that every cent that gets donated to them goes as far as possible, they assemble these crews locally. You can, if you go on their website and you are a chef and you want to travel and work with them, you can, but you've got to get your own digs. You've got to get yourself there. Uh, so it's mostly about sort of getting local communities to help themselves.
Yes, it's a
I have a
volunteer army kind of thing, right? If
Yes, it
you
is. Yeah, absolutely. And that's obviously that there's the side that means that that's a money saving
yeah.
thing. But as Chef Jose, the founder, points out, the other really crucial thing to do is to understand the local needs in terms of what people are okay with eating, what the staples are, what people will get nutritionally from it, rather than sort of marching in there and saying, well, this will be good for you and that'll be good for you.
Yeah.
I had a long history with food and charity when I was a younger chef. For 10 years, I volunteered for an organization called the Food Chain, which provided meals at home for people living with HIV and AIDS.
Right.
Um, this was a lot before the fantastic therapies that are available now. So a lot of
Yes.
these people were isolated from their community. The service had to be quite discreet,
Yeah.
uh, and
We sometimes forget the pariah element
oh,
of the early days
absolutely,
of that.
absolutely. There was a version of it in the States. I think it was called God's Love We Deliver. That
Mm.
had inspired the food chain in the UK. Uh,
Let me give a plug for the website. It's www dot WCK. That's
yeah, World Central Kitchen.
worldcentralkitchen.org.
Yeah,
And you should go online and have a look at it. You see how present and up to date it is. I was just looking at it, and it's talking about a natural disaster that's happening right now in a
yeah,
state in the United States. And then there's
yeah. They've
something
been
else
spooky,
that's,
don't they?
yeah, it's just terrific. So www.wck.org. And when we come back, we're going to hear Tom Norrington Davies' story. Okay, Tom, here we go. What spawned a memory or a true story from you out of that column?
I think it was the seeing the camaraderie of those guys, and it reminded me really of the world that I've been really lucky to inhabit uh, as a cook. You know, it's a fairly small world. Obviously, those people were all enormously famous. You've got everyone from there was Sammy Davis Jr. and, like we said, Dean Martin, G. Kelly, Frank Sinatra, obviously, um, and they had this enormous reservoir of respect for one another. It was genuine. You could really, really see it, even though it was a so-called roasting clip. Obviously, I'm talking about the clip rather than the column, I suppose there. But obviously, the column led me
Yeah, no,
to
that's
watch the
great.
clip.
Yeah.
Um, I suppose it's that friendship group, and it struck me that those are something quite precious these days that need holding on to. And one of the reasons for that is, again, social media and the internet. While it's made it easier to be in touch, if you like, with a larger cohort of people, I do wonder if some of our problems, whether it's the manosphere or just toxic debate in general, or people feeling lonely and isolated,
Yes.
despite
Mental health
access,
issues. Yeah.
yeah, um, your friendship group, the people with whom you have so much in common, those are are the key to a great life.
Tell me a little
I
bit
think
about that friendship group for you. When you think of that, do you think of a can you think of a particular moment of camaraderie?
yes, I think probably it would be when the four of us decided to open a place together. Um, and it was such a, again, it was such an organic thing. There was no moment when someone had a concept and went round persuading everybody else to do that
To buy
concept.
into it.
Yeah. So in 2007, I should say, I moved from being a jobbing chef into someone who owned a restaurant. But that restaurant was a collaboration of four of us who'd been in and out of each other's pockets for the best part of a decade by then. And
Wow.
one of them was the owner of the Eagle, Mike Belbin, who I had worked for 10 years running his kitchen for him. Um, and yeah,
What were the different was it that you had the serious guy and the how did
you had
how
yeah, I'd say probably the jokiest of the bunch maybe would be Rob, who was in charge of the front of house, and then we had just the wonderful long experience of Mike as a as a restaurateur in general. Jonathan Jones, who was a more experienced chef than me, from whom I learnt a lot, especially about segueing from just turning up and cooking a menu to actually being the driving force behind the whole kitchen. So it was a really, really lovely mix of different skills. I quite often felt like the baby of the group, even though that wasn't in terms of my actual age. I think I was actually, I think I was the second oldest, but I felt like a fledgling restaurateur for sure.
Hmm.
And I felt very kind of held, and I felt that my rookiness was really tolerated by the others. And this was what was really extraordinary. In 12 years of running the place together, we never fell out. We never had a bad moment. We never had a sort of there was the odd divergence of opinion, but it never led to a conflict, or it was an
Wow.
extraordinary experience, really. And I should say, uh, just because we touched on um, Gordon Ramsay and co. During my years writing for newspapers, I had the pleasure of getting to know Gordon a little bit. And let me tell you, that guy on the TV is not the guy that people are working for
Yeah.
in his restaurant. There are people that have stayed in his gaps for years and years and years and years. And I've met some of the people who were once his proteges and have gone on to do awesome things themselves. I think a lot of the time, what makes for great telly
Yeah.
isn't the whole story. In fact, it's far from the whole story. He's
Hey,
a
look at we were talking earlier about the posturing in the Manosphere, you
mm,
know, playing for the cameras. And I think in that documentary, I saw moments where I saw great vulnerability. Um,
absolutely,
and
yeah.
you just longed to see more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's almost like it's an inability to be vulnerable that leads to it's the armor, isn't it? You're putting on this armor,
Yes.
and it makes you it's sort of fight or flight.
Yeah.
But if you get the jabs in there first, then you're unassailable.
I
Um,
think the saddest thing in for me in that Netflix documentary, what was the name of the fellow who did the documentary?
Louis Theroux.
Louis Theroux. The saddest thing for me were those 2 young fellows. One of them admitted he was living on the street, who were like disciples of this guy.
Yeah,
And I just thought, "Oh my gosh." Of all the choices of male role models in the world,
yeah,
and this is what you're hooking your wagon to?
yes, I know.
Because it's like it's going nowhere,
Yeah,
and I just felt they were so vulnerable that, it's preying on men that really don't have much going.
that ties back to what we were just talking about. I think in the absence of the kind of groups that would maybe check you, because let's face it, a lot of these guys, they're grifters. They're selling snake oil, and they're selling it online, and they're doing really well out of it, because there are a lot of people are duped into parting company with their money for so-called life coaching.
Yeah,
They're promising them that they'll be able to enjoy their sort of lavish lifestyle with loads of women fawning all over them, and of course, we all know it's BS. But if you have come out of the COVID years and your last few years at school or at college, you were stuck in a room doing everything on Zoom, and you haven't got that friendship group, or even a mentor, an actual physical mentor to sort of say, "Come on, you know, what are you doing? You must be able to see through this."
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's something very important that we're touching on here, and that is that it's not saying men shouldn't hang out with men. It's not saying that a bunch of guys together is a bad thing. It's
mm,
just what is the purpose that's bringing you together?
yes,
What is the common denominator there? Is it something that's going to uplift you and afford you to bring more good into the world? Or
Yes,
is it
yeah,
what's going to it's an idea of you just getting more stuff, uh, as a result of hanging out with these guys? I
yeah, and it's
don't well,
being able to spot the motives.
yeah, yeah. Listen, this has been a wonderful conversation. I mean, we've
It's been
been
really nice.
yeah, we've covered a lot of territory and some of it, difficult territory to cover, and I'm glad I could do it with you. That felt safe and delightful to me. Let's give another plug for the World Central Kitchen. That's www.wck.org. Hey, listen, if you're enjoying the View from Abroad podcast, do me a solid. And before you sign out of whatever platform you're watching or listening to us on, please take 30 seconds to subscribe and leave a review and breathe all the time. Come up slowly. And remember, whatever is going on that's causing you stress or unhappiness today, tomorrow is a new day. And hey, what if it's good?